I think what you're trying to ask is why am I so insistent upon giving out to them that blackness, that black power, that black pushing them to identify with black culture. I think that's what you're asking. I have no choice over it. In the first place, to me, we are the most beautiful creatures in the whole world, black people. I mean, and I mean that in every sense, outside and inside. And to me, we have a culture that is surpassed by no other civilization, but we don't know anything about it. So again, I think I've said this before in the same interview, I think at some time before, my job is to somehow make them curious enough or persuade them by hook or crook to get more aware of themselves.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy AT2 here, bringing you another episode of Talk the Real Deal with AT2, hashtag TTRD. What's up, Rachel? I'm so happy that you joined. See, people don't know, Rachel was with me from the beginning. What's up, Aurelia? What's up, Gina? Unapologetically Lee, you holding down the fort for today. I ain't got nobody else. I don't know where everybody else went. What's up, Kim? Yes, I am up late. So technically, this is the late/morning show. As you know, currently in the UK it's 8:09 right now, but here in Cali it's 12:09. So we're gonna rock it like we always do. What's up, Terry? I see everybody in here. What's up, Dev? All right, y'all. So let's go ahead and get started. I felt like after the last couple of days, it's very important to have this conversation. I don't want to sound ignorant and say like I never realized, racism was so prevalent and stuff like that, but the Meghan Markle interview, we all heard about it. I felt with her experience, a lot of people were more reflecting on trying to either deflect from the situation or completely say it didn't happen. That's not what happened at all. And I feel like you have to have these important conversations all the time. It's funny because I was talking with my guest before we started the show. Remember those black squares everybody was posting, and we're supposed to have this whole conversation about race, and we're supposed to be moving forward and stuff like that. It seems that certain people are still in the past. So I don't know if those black squares that everybody posted on Instagram was a blessing or it was a curse. We're also going to go ahead and get into a few other topics. But without further ado, I wanted to go ahead and introduce my guest today. All the way from the UK. Y'all love her accent and y'all just love her overall personality. It has been a blessing having this platform and getting to meet her and having conversation with her. But without any further ado, welcome back to the show, London Girl.
Good morning, grand rising to everyone in the UK. No, I'm going to use my normal voice. Thanks, ATT, for having me on, and thank you for all your support and being a place that I can just bounce ideas off, because it's been a lot. This Meghan and Harry story. It was a lot before the interview anyway. So I'm happy to be here.
Right, exactly. And I'm happy to have you here. And I think a lot of times, I feel that we get into spaces and we're not always comfortable. And that's how I feel about Meghan. She was in a space and she wasn't comfortable. She didn't have the outlet to talk to anybody that understood her or knew where she was coming from. So it was very important for her to get it off her chest, That's what I really felt about it. I felt like she was all like, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you guys what it is. And let's be honest, she probably could have said a little bit more. What did you think about the overall interview?
So I thought it was great. I thought it was well paced. I thought it was well thought. As in, there is probably a lot more that she could have said. And so I think she was being cautious. And if we just look at that, So the fact that she was very open about her suicidal thoughts, the fact that Harry was open about the racism in reference to Archie, tells me that the truth is a lot worse.
Right.
Basically.
The institutionalization, that's the word that he used.
Yes, yeah.
And
It
a
is,
lot
it
of
is,
people are under that.
yeah. And you know, if we just look at it like, okay, so Meghan is a girl, it is a woman, and she's just gone to work with one of the top financial companies. She has also been able to, you know, as a mixed heritage person, she's also, you know, not necessarily had to reveal a lot about her black side, because she does, you know, she does look very light. And
Right.
so, and so for me, in my experience and my friends, when they got married, you know, we're all celebrating, oh, black person in the royal family, black person in the royal family. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people weren't acknowledging that black side until her mother showed up at the wedding and you could see what her heritage was. So
Right.
for
It was
me,
like, oh, you know.
yeah. And so for me, although the royal family is an institution on its own, her experience is no different than a lot of black women's experiences in the UK. If we're talking about going into a space where you are a minority, it's not that different. So for me, her experience around race and mental health is very relatable. Oh my gosh, I lost
Sorry
you.
about that.
I was just like, don't leave me on this stage. It's not my show.
Right.
Just
Awkward. This is a live show. This is a live show, everyone. What I was asking before I got rudely interrupted, I apologize. It's raining out here, so it's connection issues. But what I was asking was, Gina had asked, how is the tension in the UK right now? You know, as far as like what you're seeing or what you're experiencing in the media, like how is it right now? What is
so,
everybody's thoughts?
so people need to understand that in the UK, the calling out of racism is worse than the actual act of racism. So a lot of people are in their feelings and denying that they are racist, or that there could even be racism.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's the same dialogue that we were having last summer after George Floyd's murder, where everyone tried to do better, where everyone was trying to understand, whereas giving out the codes for the black Google that all the black people know exists. No, that's a joke. There is no black Google. We have the same Google that you can research the information that I research. So for me, it's kind of disappointing that whenever there's a large conversation around racism, we're always going back to zero. And for the people that aren't aware or active allies or anti-racist, we as black people have to go through exactly the same level of trauma to explain why this situation is racist or why something
Right.
is racist. So it's quite awful to look at Twitter, for instance, and just see the we're not racist. Why is she calling them racist? This is absolutely pathetic. Why are they saying that? You know, it's kind of disappointing as a society.
Exactly. You know, it was that they were offended with being called racist rather than offended with actually being racist or having or there being any kind of racism at all. You know, it's very
Exactly.
like, oh, that's not a thing that we are. This is not what it's about. Basically neglecting her whole experience and her whole being of a person, because how can you tell her this is the first time you really have a situation where there is a woman of color in that situation? So what examples would you have other than hers? You know what I mean?
Mm. This is it, because I think I read that in the 18th century, in 1751, I want to say, there was a black queen. Queen Charlotte was a black queen in the royal family. And you could
Oh, I
tell because
really
they
do.
described her as having larger lips and a wide nose and all that. And they've kind of erased her. But for modern time, she is the first person of color to be front and center. And I think that's where the issue started, was Harry having to confront some of the reality of the bias, the prejudice, and what his ancestors had done. Because don't forget, the royal family colonized the world. Basically, we colonized you guys. We tried to, and you were just like, "No, we're not having it.
Right.
We're not
We
having it."
fought back. That's why we ain't under the rule. We ain't under the rule, the Commonwealth.
That's right. So for a lot of people, it's no surprise to hear this stuff that she's going through. But on the other hand, it's also really saddening, because I was, I went to the royal wedding of Prince Charles and Diana as a kind of teenager, and I was down the hall and I was like, oh yeah, great, princess getting married, blah blah. And then to see the tragedy of her life, I think that we haven't learned anything. So for me, regardless of, because people have a lot of smack to talk about Meghan, and I'm not really into who she is or what she may or may not have done. What I don't like is this vitriol. Nobody deserves these kind of constant attacks.
Right. Exactly. And the thing is that I know there was a case against the whole charity thing back in July. They're investigating it, but they have recently brought it back up before the interview even came out. So it seemed like there's a tax. Also, they're looking into HR claims and stuff like that. And people don't
Right.
realize, like, if she did do something wrong, of course she should be held accountable. But why are we judging all the bringing all this stuff up now, and it just lets you know, like, okay, this is a planned attack. Like, they are
Yeah.
trying to take this woman down because of the interview. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? People don't see the nuance of that.
No, and then so if we look at some of the relatives, we're talking Prince Andrew. So so
The
what so,
Duke of
so what
YouTube. I'm sorry, that's why I'm laughing. Rachel, I love that. The Duke of YouTube. Keep going, London girl. I'm sorry.
So if we what I saw happening, and the conversations I would have with some of my colleagues, was because they're the daily there's vitriol and stuff printed about her in the papers or online, daily since she even came to meet Harry. So at the same time, we know that Harry's uncle has been accused of something quite awful, and so for a time it was quite obvious that in order to detract from the stuff going on with Prince Andrew, Meghan's stories were used to take that off the front page. But what Twitter does so beautifully sometimes is, when there is an outrageously stupid Meghan story, is they get Prince Andrew trending. And people are just like, well, what about that P right here? Why aren't we investigating this whole P? Why is Meghan eating a avocado worse than somebody fraternizing with underage children and a known P? I don't know if I can say the whole word, but I think you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
but
about.
I know what you mean by P. And if you
Yeah.
guys don't know what that means, hit us up after the show and we'll explain what that means. But yeah. But Prince Charles, I mean, not Prince Charles, oops, sorry. Prince Andrew, it seems like that should be something that is talked about.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, like, people think like, oh well, the royal family, they don't have access to the press and this and that, and they're not the ones putting out the story and da 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 da. But as I understand, they do have a lot of influence with the media, and they can also shut down stories, right?
Yeah, yeah. And there are two things on this. So there was a time when I think the media were kind of going after, this was before the Harry and Meghan met. So with Kate and William, there was a time when the press were going after Kate, and there was a big statement about it. The press agreed not to go after her, not to go after her children. And William, I think, spoke about the mental health and references to his mum. And that was probably about 5 years ago. And slowly, since Prince Harry and Meghan have come out, it's just gone. So where for me she talks about protection, she's not talking about she's not just talking about security protection. She's talking about the fact that, in my opinion, that the royal family have enough influence to stop stories coming out.
That's what I got from her too. And it's funny because I was trying to explain to somebody and I was all like, basically she didn't feel protected. And everybody wants to bring up the whole fact like, oh, Archie wasn't going to have security and they, because they're leaving the royal family, they want the taxpayers to pay for it and all this stuff. And it was getting wonky and all over the place. But I was like, no, dude, like, she was talking about protection from everything. And you would
Yes,
think if the royal family was so progressive, they would understand that this is a black woman, this is a woman of mixed heritage, this is something new, this is something different. We see the racist attacks because I remember they referenced her baby as a monkey. Some
yeah,
reporter did or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
So they should have already been ahead of this stuff and be like, hey, we need to tackle this and we need to come out in the forefront and say like, hey, we don't stand with this, we don't like this, but it just seemed like it was kind of like, well,
Okay,
it's just a part
so
of it. It's just a part of it.
I'm gonna stop you there. So where you reference so beautifully her heritage and whatever, don't forget the majority of people up until probably last year when we told them, but I don't see colour. You're all the same. I don't see colour. So, you can't call me racist because I don't see colour. Actually, it's a problem for me that you don't see colour because you not seeing colour is a problem because you're not acknowledging who I am.
That's
So
the point of
so
the
so
erasure,
so you're coming from a perspective of people having an awareness about racism and about heritage and about belonging, but that doesn't exist. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist with the Queen, for instance, as head of the
Mhm.
Commonwealth, but I don't think it exists around the stuffy institutional advisors that run the quote unquote firm. So the Queen isn't just like signing off papers on her own. She has a whole team around her. We've seen it in The Crown. I know The Crown isn't, a factual documentary, but it does, Harry said himself, it does give an idea of what's going on. So you have to think of the Queen as the CEO or the president of that institution. She has advisors, she has chief of staff. It's those people, and I'm giving her a bit of a pass here because my inherently British kind of ties to the royal family are kicking in for some reason, some strange reason. But I'm going to give her a pass because, I work, we've all been in corporate situations where we know that it's difficult to get to the CEO. It's difficult to have time with the CEO. And so it's difficult to actually have that level of dialogue that is necessary. It's difficult to get past the advisors. And so Harry's actually said himself, he has, Harry's 30, whatever. He said he's spoken to the Queen, his grandmother, more in the past year than in his entire life. So that tells me
There's a
that
disconnect.
to get access to her is difficult even for him.
Right, exactly. And I don't know if that's because of security reasons they have it like that, but I think no matter who your grandma is, you should be able to get in contact with your grandmother, and have
Well,
more communication with her.
Well, yeah, but that is the ridiculousness of a firm, the royal family that hasn't adapted to modern ways. So actually, they could have played a blinder with this whole thing. This could have been their
Hmm.
chance to kind of bring a very, very modern stance to to the sorry, I get distracted by these messages, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I
It's
don't know how
hard.
you
It's hard doing the show,
I don't know
keeping
how
up
you
with the
do it.
messages.
No,
People don't know how it is.
no, I'm getting the idea now. But what was I going to say? So they had a chance for this all to be different had they not just been so stuck in their ways and stuffy.
Right. Exactly. Rachel had put something, and I don't know if you're gonna get arrested by the FBI if you answer it. But is there a way you think of? I don't want to use the word dismantle because Rachel said dismantle. Do you think there's a way of the whole monarchy changing at all?
Well, Prince Charles does have a vision, I think, of the monarchy becoming smaller. if you know, and that's the whole thing about how the future titles are being awarded or changed. So they changed, and it's good in terms of women. They changed for Princess William's children, so his daughter is now in line for the throne, and she wasn't previously because it was just a patriarchal kind of thing. So they changed, they made an amendment around that. So I think yes and no. I mean, I think it would only change, personally for me, it would only change when Prince William becomes king. And I think there would be such outrage, you know, for the you know, there is an anti-royalist movement, and they don't really serve a purpose that I can tell, really, anymore in this modern society. But I can't say anymore because, like you say, I will get, you know, you might not see me again if I gave my true opinion on.
Oh, if you get Mimi, where are you from again? Can you tell me? She said it's a funny to hear the difference between UK royals and Dutch royals. How many royals is there?
Oh, honestly, in Europe, in Europe, there's a whole royal what do I want to say, that there are loads of royals in Europe, in Spain, in Sweden, in Denmark, in, you know, but they don't have the functions that the British royal family have. And don't forget, there were kings and queens in Africa, you know, before all this. So it's for me, it's a weird situation that we're in. We're forgetting that before colonization, you know, rest of the world, and especially in African countries, we are descendants of kings and queens. We have to remember that.
We weren't savages. Don't let them history books teach. I don't know if your history books teach, you know, there were savages over there in Africa, but we were not savages. We were kings and queens. Yeah, and we had resources, gold, diamonds,
inventors, doctors, you know, what are they called? Maternity nurses. We were royals. And then, you know, stupid people came along and said, oh, we want some of that, which kind of still goes on. If you look at music, if you look at anything, it still goes on that Black people are having their having the stuff that we produce stolen from them continuously. Let's not get into the Elvis story and who really was Elvis before Elvis. But you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. It's like, you know, we create it and then it's reproduced into something else, and all like, oh, this is our thing now. And it's all like, wait, no, we've been doing that, you know. Exactly. It happens a lot in history.
Shout out to Rebecca for finding my word. Yeah, midwives. They're amazing.
Midwives. Yes. Amazing. I was going to call it a medulla for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, it's similar to doula, but that's more of a coaching partner for somebody giving birth.
Right, exactly. How, and you probably can't answer this because this is not really your question to answer, but how do we kind of change the institutionalization? Because there's some people, like I said, I've had many arguments with people in the comments and stuff like that. Well, actually not arguments. I just let them say whatever they want to, and I just harden like it and be like, oh, thank you for your comment. But a lot of people are like, no, this is wrong. And, you know, as I understand from history, I remember the kings and queens are supposed to be descendants from God. Do you think people still believe that the kings and queens are descendants of God, you know, as in like relatives and like family of God?
Well, I couldn't really answer that properly because I'm not really a super religious person. And I think that religion plays differently in the UK than it does from what I've seen in America. I mean, Christianity seems to be the heart of America, but I don't see the same thing happening in the UK. So I don't know the answer to that.
Oh, so with you guys, it's not I think that was offensive. You guys. It's not a religious thing to you, it's just a way of life, if I understand.
Well, I just see it as a birthright. So through birth, quote unquote, right,
that's the proper word.
You are born into this family and you carry on. It's kind of the connection between the British royals and the Spanish royals it is through, you know, the royal family were German, essentially. You know, they're descendants from Germans that Rebecca has said. And so for me, it's just like, you're taking this right just because you are the daughter of Harry or the daughter of William. So it's a weird system, right? That just because you were born into it, you're entitled then to be a ruler, is what's being said. So that thing I sent you last night, for instance, they did a poll, and they were saying that the over 65s are largely very supportive of the royal family. The younger generation are supportive of Meghan and Harry, but people really lose their minds over people criticizing the royal family in some circles.
Right, exactly. And thank you, shout out to Sherry, and thank you, Mimi. Religion played a big part in the England and Ireland. I think the history of it was based through Christianity. If
Thank you, Mimi. Like I said, I can't speak to it because I'm not in those. I'm not a particularly. I'm a Buddhist. Okay, I just say it. I'm a Buddhist. Like Tina Turner.
Hey, ain't
I'm a
nothing wrong with
Buddhist.
that.
So I'm not close to Christianity in that way. So I'm sorry if I offended anyone.
Oh, no. I think I was just trying to get the relation because I know in the history books, that I do know about kings and queens, like basically they are looked at as God, like God on earth. And so I was
Right.
thinking maybe that's why people are so institutionalized because I'll put it out there. In America, you know, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, you can say whatever you want to about the president without consequences. Yes, you do have a few nuances in there, and you do have situations where you can't go extreme with it, but you can criticize it. And I'm thinking from what I've been experiencing so far with covering this whole Meghan thing, is that people really look at it as like, hey, this is our royalty. How dare you say anything or question anything?
Yeah, I think it could be. And someone here, is it Sherry? Sherry, thank you, Sherry. She's pointed out that the Queen is the head of the church.
Yes.
Right, okay. But yeah, I mean, I'm not really that interested in that side, to be honest. Just because I don't see myself as a staunch royal supporter. I had no interest in Harry and Meghan other than what a beautifully loving couple they looked like. And then the vitriol came. And that became my interest, just because in England racism is very under the surface, and it's events like this that bring people's opinion out. And you know, so I remember if incidents happened at the weekend and involving a black person, or say we had a terrorist attack, I would be so nervous about going into the office and having to have that dialogue and having to hear that vitriol about around othering, and these people are so terrible and blah. It's you know, and I follow, as you know, Nova Reid. I encourage people to look her up. Nova Reid, she's on Instagram. She said,
thank you for sending me her too as well.
She says that basically racism is trauma. Racism is a public health issue. And so with Meghan, speaking of, you know, her feeling suicidal, her wanting to get help. And I want to say that the help that she wanted wasn't just to see a psychiatrist. The help that she wanted was to actually be in hospital. That was what she was seeking. She was seeking a hospital stay. And so for me, I can really relate to how traumatic racism is, because even this, as it's come out on Monday, I felt so triggered. You know, I was listening to someone else's opinion and I was like, what the hell? We're still in this spot where you're not acknowledging that racism exists. And it's terrible. It's a terrible feeling to constantly feel like we're going back to the beginning in this dialogue. And that's why I'm so grateful that you have a platform to have dialogues, because I'm really hopeful that we can listen, understand, and educate each other, so that the next big global racial thing, which kind of is going to be around George Floyd's the trial of his murderers, or
they're already preparing for it as well.
An anniversary event, that we're not having the same conversation from scratch.
Exactly. And I appreciate, you being open and open to have these conversations on camera. The thing that I want to say that I appreciate, and also for people like Rebecca and everyone else, is that, these spaces aren't really, there's not a lot of spaces for Black people in the UK to really talk about this, because it's either shunned or, it said like it's not happening. And that happens here in the US as well too. Racism doesn't exist and stuff like that. But when you guys heard Meghan's story, it wasn't a question on whether she was telling the truth or not. You guys were all like, "Oh, this is what we've been saying."
Yeah.
Was that kind of your reaction?
Yeah, absolutely. And we had some great commentators. I mean, we do have some spaces to talk about this stuff, but it's mainly amongst your friends in my experience.
Right.
And we've got some great commentators like Gina Yashire, the comedian, Dr. Shola, the anti-racist commentator, and also Kelechi, who's a podcast creator, really, really drilling down and sharing their experiences and commentating on this is,
Mhm.
you need another side. You need somebody to be able to say, no, this isn't right, and it's not right because of X, Y, and Z. And
Right.
so those people are kind of what I would call the safe spaces for us. So, like Alex, in terms of how Alex on the Good Morning Britain show yesterday, in terms of how he spoke out, because
Mhm.
basically what he was saying was, I have to come to this workplace, let alone it being live every morning. I have to come to this workplace and listen to you spouting off this vitriol every single day about Meghan. How do you think I feel as a minority having to put up with that? Nobody should have to put up with that in their workplace. So I was very proud of him that he spoke
Right.
out. But
Exactly.
it's rare. It's rare that someone actually calls someone out for their vitriol and
It
their race.
makes you respect it.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not like thank you. Somebody sees it. Even
yes,
though if this person doesn't see it, at least this guy sees it and he
yeah.
understands it. And it's crazy because like I feel like you can learn and you can have change, because Harry said he didn't realize there was any and I'm paraphrasing, but he didn't realize anything was wrong until he fell in love with Meghan, and then it was all like, oh, this is what's going on. Like, oh, now I understand it. Now I get it. So it was almost like his eyes were closed this whole time. And finally he opened up his eyes, and it was like, oh, wow, this is what the world really is. And it really shocked him. And I think that's true for a lot of white people as well. Like, it's all like, oh, this is what you guys go through. This is how it is. And it's all like, yes, this is how it is. But he took the time to like be all like, hey, I need to get my family out of here, and I commend him for that. I don't see it as like, oh, they walked away from the royal family and they were just privileged and how dare they do this and that. I looked at it as he wanted to make sure his family was okay and his family was safe. He said, let's get the beat up out of here. That's what I.
So I've got theories about Prince Harry and Diana and stuff, and I do think that he's we all saw, or some of us saw, what Margaret went through as the spare, and we saw it through the Crown, and then in Britain, sort of living through her. She was the spare who had nothing to do. Harry's coming from a very uniquely privileged upbringing where all he is seeing is privilege. All he is seeing, he's going to other countries, he's performing his duty. He might not have been that attached to it. He did serve two tours in Afghanistan. He was active in that. He also set up this amazing charity and games for the for his army. For it's called the Invictus Games, and it's about people who have served and have lost or become disabled as a thing. And it's a really successful thing where he's supporting these ex-vets, amazingly. So for him, I think that Meghan opened his eyes But I think he was already there. I think he already realized he was the spare. He might have been drifting. In my opinion, allegedly, he found out the truth about how Diana died. And that's what I think set him off more than anything. He found out the truth. Right. And then it compounded with Meghan, the treatment Meghan got, and decided to leave. So that's me, and I hope you put the link in for Mimi, because she keeps saying that she's a Brit raised in.
I went ahead and put that link down there for her because I wanted her to come on. I was waiting for the conversation to progress before I let people on, because you know it gets kind of wonky when there's a whole bunch of people on.
And also, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Mimi Celestine, I don't think that Harry is the only one grieving, but you have to understand that he is not the heir, he's the spare. So Harry and William's lives have a completely different trajectory. So William is the first in line after Charles to the throne. So he's been put on a different path to Harry. And I've read that Harry really was, because he's apparently a bit more open, a bit more whatever, and he doesn't have to keep up this public appearance that William's under pressure to. I hear that they both supported each other through their grieving, and that's why they became so involved in some mental health charities. But saying that, it's also a red flag that Meghan was comfortable enough to say about her own mental health issues, right?
Right. And I'm happy that as well that Piers Morgan is gone. I just want to give this a brief little second. I find it interesting that, this guy kind of just went on a rant for like the last 2 weeks when the interview was first announced.
It's longer. He's been talking shit about Meghan for so long. So what happened was before Harry met Meghan, Piers had lunch. It was a business lunch. Meghan wasn't interested in Piers, and Piers is married. It was a business lunch that Meghan and Piers had. After that lunch, Meghan went to a party where she met Harry. At that point, she ghosted Piers. This is all about Piers's rejection. This is where his vitriol stems from. And if you think how long have they been married? 5 or 6 years? I can't remember. But imagine having the fragility of ego as a man that because someone rejected you, you're going on this obsessive rant, and it became obsessive.
Right, exactly. Piers Morgan has been bitter since America rejected him when he tried to. Oh, I did not know about that. Well, without further ado, what I'm going to do is introduce right now Mimi. Mimi had stated that she was actually born in the UK and then she moved to America. So I definitely want to get her perspective on this. What's up, Mimi? Thank you for joining the show.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you sound good. I can hear you.
Okay, good. My internet's okay. So
your internet is working.
Yeah, so it's odd because when I was a kid, we couldn't wait to watch the royal wedding, of Diana and stuff. And now that I'm when I moved, I was 8 years old when I moved to the United States. I still have a green card. I'm not a citizen. And I have a lot of family in the UK still. Almost all my family's in the UK. And so I have a different perspective. So when she was speaking about how it is in America and how, we don't get it, the monarchy and how it is over there. I agree. I got that.
Ignorant to it.
She didn't sound ignorant. She just was like, well, yeah, I get they're kings and queens, but we don't get the whole institution part, because in America, they're not raised to know what that means, what it entails, all of that. And it's a whole job. It's a completely different life that she married into. And then on top of it, let's not negate the fact that the fact of the matter is they took his title. They told him his child would not get protected and his child would not have a title. That is given to everyone in the family. Especially being a second, he's not even that far removed. Yeah, he's not an heir. He's not even close to an heir. I mean, he's close to an heir, but not there. But for them to just say, you're not going to get a title. The bottom line is they took all of that from him because he married a black woman. And there's nothing you could tell me to say any different. It's not that she was American. It's not that she was divorced. It's not that she was American or divorced. And yes, when she said, I didn't get training, Diana has said on an interview that they have this whole training. They teach you they teach me what I can and do and what I can't do. And even Diana had that, and she had a terrible time. Meghan wasn't even offered the bare minimum of what it entails to be in that family.
So Mimi, for me, this is where Harry plays a part, because he could have got her trained up, and I think he suffered from his privilege place. This is all he knew, so he couldn't really relate to somebody coming in and not knowing how really difficult it would be. And then second to that, I want to add, where was the sisterly love from Kate? Because Kate also taken Meghan under her wing and said, look, you got to curtsy to the Queen in private. I know it's a bit bonkers, but...
And it reminds me. Do you
actually not? I don't want to say I'm using the wrong word, but like she had 10 years to gain the experience. Like she has like a background in this. Like basically, she was like poised to be married.
She was privileged. They had a 10-year on and off courtship. So she was in Britain, we talk a lot about Kate's mother and how she basically groomed her to be the princess. Yeah. That sounds like an awful word, but, trained her over those years to be ready for everything that it entailed. And they had 10 years. Harry and Meghan said that basically, from their first meeting, Harry said, well, we just got on so well. And so if you check out the James Corden interview with Harry, that gives you a lot of what he was feeling. And also, James tries to get them to buy the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's house. They go to the house and everything. It's really funny. They actually meet the people who own the house.
I have to see it. James Corden is amazing.
Yeah, he's not amazing. We gave him to you. We don't.
Well, I mean, he's amazing at making hard things light.
Yes,
he is good at that. He's good at that. I'll give him that.
And so in that interview, Harry does share, his feelings for when he met Meghan, how they courted and all that. And he said, because we felt so connected and before we came public, we were just kind of at home watching TV, watching movies. We have to court differently as royals. But because the connection was so strong, he was like, yeah, I want to marry this woman.
Yeah. I also feel like during the interview, when he said, I see a parallel with my mom, I kind of saw that like in his face, like I felt that. Like he was like, I don't want her to die kind of thing, because he kind of saw it going in a way that how it went with his mom. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, original London girl, but this really reminds me, without the ethnicity part or the race part, it even reminds me of Fergie and Diana. Everybody hated Fergie because she was just real. Like there
was a lot of comparisons with that, right?
They pitted her against Diana all the time. And then now they pitting like her with Kate all the time. But then she has the added thing of being black. So it's just like, she can't win. Like, she didn't have a chance kind of thing.
So for me...
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So for me, I can't say. I can only assume that the royal family, based on it being an institution, is racist at the very worst, but
Of course.
but is prejudiced and doesn't understand race at the very best. The problem in the UK is the press. So
Can
if the press hadn't been so involved, if there hadn't been so many stories that
they
I think connected Harry to his mother's experience, we wouldn't be where we were. And also in terms of them leaving the royal family, it sounded to me that they had a lot of negotiations. They didn't blindside on this.
they have relationships with the press.
Yeah.
Yes, we were saying that earlier too.
That is part of the protection that she was speaking of. They can say, I'll give you this if you don't post that. I'll give you this if you don't print that. They have done it for years. They didn't protect her at all. They let them. Now they look at fucking what's his face. Oh my God, I cussed. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I know.
Bleep me out. Oh my God, I'm like the worst.
Go ahead and finish your statement.
I'm the worst. So, like what they did with Andrew, like they can talk to these press people any way they want to and say, look, we're not doing this to her. And they could have taken care of it, period. Like, yeah.
Go ahead, London girl.
Yeah, absolutely. And we spoke on that, I think, at the beginning.
Sorry.
No.
If I'm repeating.
No. I think you came in later. So what we were saying in the beginning is the fact that the protection, like you said, that she wanted was from the press. That she said in the interview that they're willing to lie about other members of the royal family in the press, and they won't allow her. And they won't allow stories to be corrected about her. This is why she won the High Court case in the against the Daily Mail for the letters that her father sold.
Now,
and that they printed.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's it.
Now, one thing he said that I did not know about, you probably did know, but we didn't know out here, was that overwhelmingly in like the courts of England, they had made comments that she was treated unfairly, she's been treated racist from the courts, not from the royals.
No, from the court side. Yeah, and that's the point, I think, because how it's played out.
I wasn't aware of that at all, and I don't think many people are. So that's actually important because if you could explain that a little bit more, because I'm originally a Brit, but I haven't lived there forever. So maybe clarify what that meant.
So on this point, it was that her father was on Good Morning Britain yesterday saying, as long as they don't talk to me, I am going to sell stories about them. So at the time of the wedding, Meghan had written a 6-page personal letter to her father. He then sold it. He then sold it to the press. She said, "This is a privacy note, and that this is a matter of privacy, and it shouldn't have been printed." And so she took it to court to claim damages and to claim her right to say this is actually a private thing. She won that case. So for me, but interestingly, after that case was then announced that she had won, the UK press then came out and said, we're not racist. And so this is the thing I'm talking about, 82. When there is a situation of race, and when people are racist, they then come out and absolutely deny it. So the press did like some joint weird statement saying we are not. It's so bonkers, because it's just like, you will always gaslight on racism. You will always deny the existence of racism.
Right. It was so funny because I was going to put the statement that the Buckingham Palace had put out, but I didn't think there was anything that I needed to put on my show, because basically it was all like, oh well, we're sorry that she experienced that, but it was some, and I'm paraphrasing, but stories vary. That's
Yes, yes,
basically what they
yeah,
said. They
yeah,
said she was lying in a certain
yeah.
way.
The really interesting thing about that statement coming out yesterday, and then having the palace is doing like a bit of a PR exercise. So on the news yesterday, we see Prince Charles going to a vaccination centre,
Yes,
and
I loved about
I
that.
was looking at it, and it was just like, oh my god, this is such a PR exercise. So Prince Charles in a vaccination centre. So we have a nice picture of him talking to a black lady. Oh, you're right. You're
Right.
right. He's going okay, and her, masked up, saying, yes, sir, it's all fine. And then him actually talking, saying, well, I know that black churches have a big role to play in the community. So I really do appreciate that because COVID does affect black people more than any other, and so it's just so fun. And I was just like, this bullshit on this day is just a PR exercise. Tell me, Prince Charles, you have this beautiful organic farm. I do occasionally buy some of your products. They're very delicious. But were you doing free food parcels in COVID for this? That would have been more appreciated than you doing some whack ass PR thing yesterday.
Right. As I understand, he hadn't been there since 2007 either.
Been where?
The last time he was at that place that he went to was back in 2007. I might have to pull it
Yeah,
up.
I mean, for me, it was just like, oh, you chose today, so this is a scramble effort. I think, and you're trying to give big PR. I saw that story once though, because everyone was just like, nah, this is it. This ain't it. We don't need to see
Right.
this.
But there's some people who are like, oh, look at what he did. It was so great. He cares about the black people there. That's what
So,
they're thinking.
so for me, this is that thing that we see in corporations where it's performative allyship.
Right. Performative activism.
Yeah,
Right. And that definitely makes a big difference. It was all like, were you doing this before? Or are you doing this now to try to clean up everything?
yeah,
But what I wanted to go back to is because Piers Morgan, basically he was let go because the way he kind of dismissed the claims that Meghan was making regarding mental health. And I
yeah.
know mental health is so important to you, and just like you said, like racism does cause trauma. So I just wanted you to talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, so that was really disgusting. And he got a lot of flack from mental health charities. Not only that, but there's like a sister program that comes on after that particular show. And the doctor on that program lost his brother to suicide. So
Oh
there was
no.
all kinds of outrage because basically
Mm,
what the message that he said is, if you share suicidal feelings, you will not be believed, and the stigma of mental health is difficult enough as it is. And so I think it was twofold why he got sacked. But I think the mental health was a massive issue because you can't deny how someone feels. You cannot say it's not true, I don't believe them. Imagine that you are suffering, you finally have the courage to tell someone, and you're not believed. That is a tragedy waiting to happen. And so for me, because racism, I believe, is a public health issue because it shows up
mm,
on us in different ways. For a lot of women, it can be problems around the gynae area, like there's a high incidence of fibroids, there's a high
mm.
incidence of uh, um, uh, issues with men around the cycle. There's a higher incidences of high blood pressure, diabetes. These are all connected to racism and the fact that as Black people, we are kind of built through our ancestry to just carry on, and especially Black women. So for me, I just want to share a little bit. I've been having, and I encourage everyone to do whatever it is they need to heal and to put some things in place, because these daily microaggressions are like 1,000 cuts, and we don't necessarily realize the effect they're having on us until we might get to breaking point. So I do a compassion-based therapy where it's all about kindness to myself. It's all about how can I heal for myself. It's all about, you know, kind of bigging myself up, and but also healing, and just knowing that, you know, as a child, I wasn't equipped to handle this stuff. So my reaction could be linked to that. But I think it's important that we all get, as Black and white people, but especially as Black people, we get to a point where we are compassionate to ourselves in order that we can be compassionate to other people. And I think we just need to kind of dig deep, not be stigmatized about this thing that we do. You know, I call it, we can either walk around with scars or we can walk around with open wounds. And a lot of the time, we're walking around with open wounds.
Oh, that is deep right there. That is so true. A lot of times we are walking around with open wounds and not scars. You know, it hasn't healed. It has not healed.
So I think I think these things, and because, you know, before the George Floyd murders, I was just London girl. But since then, a different lens has been put on me in my workplace. And yeah, okay, great. Now you're seeing the color. But what about all those years when I was telling you that racism existed and whatever? So I think when all these things happen, we have to acknowledge the triggering effect, these racist discussions, these discussions around race, these discussions around trying to get equity and equality, and linking to how our experience links to Meghan's experience. We do need to take the time to just, you know, go into a space where we can heal, we can be a bit more compassionate to ourselves, because this is a marathon. These discussions are a marathon. I've learned.
Right. What I found is that, and I'm gonna play a clip right now too, because I wanted to talk about something now that you mentioned it. You know, these companies have put out a statement in how they care about Black people, and they said Black Lives Matter. You know, they did the black squares and everything like that. But it was all like, okay, well, what does your company look like? And I appreciated that this time we looked further into it, because it seemed like people said Black Lives Matter because it's a trend, but who's your CEO? What does your boardroom look like? You know, who's your upper management? Because yeah, you can say you hired a few Black people, you met your quota, but are you progressing them? Are you making sure that they're getting the proper training they need to grow up in your company? Or are they at an entry level? So I want to go ahead and play this. Right. I want to go ahead and play this clip right here.
Now we have corporations saying Black Lives Matter. We got the big signs, and that's the hash. It's not only the hashtag, you know, it's commercial, you know, it's on clothing. It's all over the place that Black Lives Matter. It's a fad. But what we need to do is not allow it to be a fad. We need it to be fact, because when it's fact, we get to live.
Yeah, so this is it. So I know that some companies, and in the, you know, like I said, I work in corporate, are now looking at their targets. You know, what is their targets? When are they going to achieve a certain level of management, being Black and brown, ethnic minority people? When are they going to, you know, what's the year to target that there are more people going up to board level? So, you know, companies that are doing action are companies that we have to applaud, because they're looking at themselves and saying, actually, we've got it wrong. We need to change, because customers of those companies are looking at we don't have anything in common with Meghan, and the only people we're not kind to are ourselves.
London girl, let me address that real quick. Pretty Nikki, if you can please reiterate and explain what you mean by that, because let me just cut this off right here, and I hope this is not what you mean, but we're not doing that separatism with the whole light skin, mixed skin, all that. At the end of the day, over there in that country, they looked at her as another black woman. So we're not going to do that today if that's where you're coming from. I'm not going to block you or anything like that, but we're not going to do that today. Keep going, London girl. Go ahead.
So yes, I want to shout out Smooth Art Design Labs because she or they have been putting a lot of stuff that I've been talking about or agree with in the comments, and it is that what are your targets? So I have young nieces and nephews. You know, in 20 years when they're in the job market, is it going to be that the whole organization has changed so that they are on equal footing with their peers, and that when they want to go for promotion, all that they're seeing at board level, right, there are 5 black and brown people on this board. I know that this company is inclusive.
Right. And let me address this comment. Heza, I'm glad you bring that up because like you, I have my opinions about it too. But I think it's very important as black people we clarify what we mean by this, Heza. And I just want to educate everybody right now. When I say Black Lives Matter, I am talking about the people and not necessarily the organization. And I'm not knocking the whole organization at all, but when I say Black Lives Matter, I'm talking about the people like you and me. I'm talking about black people. So I just want to say, when you say things like that, if you can please clarify for the nuance, because I have a large audience, so it's very important that you clarify what you said, because I don't want people to think that we're bashing black. It gets a little tricky. So I'm not calling you out or anything like that, but I just wanted to explain that real quick. But thank you for mentioning that. Go ahead, London girl.
Yeah, so I think it's I do think it's about, are we moving to a society where inclusion really does matter? And that involves education and training, and at the same time, because we're working in environments that are still toxic, are still prejudiced, still show their bias, we need to ensure that there is support for black employees as they navigate this changing world. And that's been something that I've been really passionate about in my workspace, because, you know, all this stuff talking about ourselves all of a sudden when you didn't care for all the time I was there, you know, it's having an effect. It's having an effect. So you need to have support, coaching, mental health support available for black employees as companies change, because the burden is so hard. It's very taxing to move in these spaces of change, carry on having these dialogues. It's a big effort.
Exactly. Definitely. Yep, I agree. And oh wait, hold on, let me read it on here where it's bigger. I'm looking at my laptop for those of you wondering like why my face keeps turning. Yep, I agree. I'm in support of my people. I don't say that for the group. It's just a fact. We are people. We deserve to be respected and treated as such. We shouldn't have to beg for it. Exactly. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I wasn't trying to knock you, and thank you for understanding that. Go ahead, London girl. I'm sorry.
No, so I think that's it in terms of societal change. But I also just think that these dialogues are, you know, great to continue, because I do think that there is so much ignorance around. I do think that you know, I don't want there to be another global race incident, let's say, and us back to having the same conversation with some of our white friends, some of our white workers, because it's disheartening.
Right. Let me read this comment. They only looked at her as another black woman because there are the same people who literally 2 generations ago were involved in enslaving black people. Meghan claims she didn't know this really. I'm not saying that you're incorrect, but I don't know this to be true. Nikki, I don't know if that is exactly true. If you do have the reference, if you do have a link to that, please let me know. We need to stop being naive. All right, girl. Mimi, I'm gonna let you go back on. What do you have to say? Mimi, you still there?
She said her internet was having a bit of trouble, but maybe it's a good time to round up.
Yeah,
Do you
we've been
think?
here on an hour, so yeah. Thank you to everybody for coming on the show. I really do appreciate you guys, hanging out with us, having this conversation. I want to say shout out to London Girl. Thank you so much for just giving us your knowledge and giving us just being so open and honest and talking about the things that actually matter. And I appreciate you for holding me accountable, and I appreciate you for just being out there and just being willing to share your experience and share your story, you know?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fine. I will say that that people need to well, what I do, which is helpful, is I make sure that I know who my crew are. Assemble your crew, as Dave Chappelle would say. I sound like Katie Hopkins. Oh my God, that's so awful.
Oh, there's
That's
somebody,
so
I don't know who
awful.
that is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, who's Katie Hopkins?
I'm using my very bestest voice, Laura Taylor, and I hope I don't sound like Katie Hopkins. I'm not a fan of hers, but I would say that it's important for us to assemble our crews to make sure that we have that group of people around us who are bigging us up, who have our backs, who are. You're on mute, I think. 82.
I'm on mute.
Oh, that's better. I can see your lips moving, but nothing was coming
Oh,
out.
okay. I think it's a delay because the internet. The internet.
Okay, so I think assemble your crew has really worked for me in corporate spaces, so that I have a variety of people who I know I can go to, who I know I can share things with, who I know I can rant to, who I know will be saying my name in rooms of importance. So it's a crew made up of a diverse group of people, and it also and that's what I do in work, and then also in my home life. I think it's important to assemble all your friends, really reach out to them, connect with them, create these kind of spaces, because it's important dialogue.
Right. So Drea said, not Katie racist Hopkins, girl.
Exactly.
Oh,
Drea, thank you. You got
oh no. Okay, now I gotta go Google who the heck this woman is.
oh
Let me add Mimi back on the line.
she is Piers Morgan's sister. Let's just put it like that. She's not really, but she's from that ilk.
She's from that. Oh, okay. Hey, Mimi, are you still there? Your mic. Oh, I don't think she's there anymore. Okay. All right. Well, London Girl, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate that. Also, is there any last and final thoughts you want to give the people? Because we're gonna definitely do this again. Next time I would definitely like Mimi and Rebecca to come on too as well.
So my final thought, and I've seen it a bit in the comments about from Sarcastic Sid, and he's saying, do you think this is a distraction or something to cause more tension? And I think that is, in the world that we live in a post-Trump era, then definitely. I think that for me, this brings out the worst of society. We are in the middle of a global pandemic, and this is front page news. What should be front page news in the UK is holding the government to account over how it's handled the pandemic, is making sure that children are not in poverty in the UK. It's all these really important things. But as a society, we have become like that film, The Social Dilemma, we have fallen for all these hooks. So my final thing would be to try and live your life outside of media, at least for the next few days, because I know how I've got dragged into this unwillingly. I've got dragged in because it's all I see. But from this, I want to go back to the things that really matter. Are my neighbours okay? Have I called that friend recently that I haven't spoken to for a while? So yeah, I do think that these situations do also serve as distraction techniques, because what is really going on that they're trying to hide by these front pages. Something's going on underneath. Their bills are being passed in Parliament. Bills are being, insidious things that they're not reporting on are happening while we're all distracted by this Meghan and Harry stuff.
Right. And I'm glad Pretty Nikki brought this point up, because what I wanted to say was that I cannot say, because it's very important to discuss this as far as like Meghan's experience and how she walked through life. None of us really know that, and I don't think she's ever said like I walked through my life or my life experience as a white woman. I don't know her to say that. So we can't say that without actual resources. And I have heard her talk about race, and I've heard her talk about her mom, who is a black woman. So I cannot negate that or say anything against her. Her being, whether she's white passing or not, I feel that's irrelevant to the story, because as we understand, they saw her as a black woman, they saw her as a woman of color. So at the end of the day, instead of attacking her, let's uplift her and let her know that, hey, I might not know everything that's going on over there, but I support you and I want to uplift you. And at this point, that is the end of our show, you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with your boy AT2. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe. Mimi, now I made you a moderator, but you're going to get fired today. You're going to get fired because you're trying to be cute on camera and not doing your job in the chat. And this is why we got sidetracked over here. Mimi, you're fired. You're fired. You're fired. My hours are from 9 to 5. You're fired because you didn't do your job. I'm going to talk to her in the chat later on Instagram. But thank you guys for hanging out with us. And thank you, London Girl. I love you so much. Have a blessed day. Thank you. I'll be talking to you later as well. Love you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody, or great night. Sleep.
Yes. It's going to be sleep for me. I'm taking my ass to bed. I'm taking off this hat. All right, y'all. We out of here. Deuces. I really love and appreciate y'all for hanging out with me. I really do. Where's the outro? See, every time I try to play the outro, it never works. Here we go. Here we go.